Uh, Today's lesson, my inspiration came from Raymond Charles Barker. Dr. Barker was the founding minister for this center in New York. I've expanded on some of his points for a bit, and I found statements from Dr. Barker for the opening today. And he said, whatever your conditions and circumstances of life may be, your harbored thoughts, the ones that you keep deep within you, your harbored thoughts are responsible for your experience. Usually when we think of a harbor, it's a place of safety. But this, in the context in which he's speaking, is a place where you have deep ideas that are within you, deep inside. The kind of ideas we don't always talk about, the ideas we don't share. They could be the things that we worry about. So your harbored thoughts, whatever your conditions are in life, your harbored thoughts are responsible for your experience. So what he's suggesting is we have a lot of things inside of us, perhaps that we don't talk about. Our deep interior life, it's the stuff that's inside of us. And the thing is that very stuff is in operation all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. So again, whatever he said, whatever your conditions are and your circumstances are in life, your harbored thoughts, whatever they may be, that's what's responsible for what's showing up in your life. Our thoughts, our predominant thoughts, shape our personal, individual world. And of course, the good news is we can change them. There's power for good in the universe greater than you, and you can use it. You can use it by changing your thinking, but you have to do so at depth. And that's not as always easy as it sounds. There's an expression in recovery circles, those of you who are involved in any type of 12-step program, and there are many 12-step programs, for a person to have change at depth, it can't be just a superficial, I want to change and I've got some New Year's resolutions. You've got to want to change at depth. The expression is you got to want it. So what can we do to stir up a deep desire for change? Because we've got like a whole mass of things within us in our harbor that we have maybe protected and defended and everything else we do. What can we do to dislodge a lot of that stuff that we probably don't even let people know most of the time? So we got to want to step up and have these changes take place and change that type of thinking. The automatic responses we make, okay? And we do it almost reflexively. We say no without thinking. We have an opinion without thinking things through. A lot of that's just automatic. It's based upon past experience. And it prevents us from being in a new moment because we're already decided. So that's a problem, because we talk a lot about being in the now, living in the now. How the heck can I live in the now when I've already decided everything about this person? You can think of your family members, you can think of your friends, you can think of your partners. And sometimes it's difficult being in a new moment with them because you have this history. We play with that word, history. His story, her story. We have a story about so many things, and that really prevents us from being in new moments with our bosses, with our friends, with our relations, and with lots of people. So if we want to have change in all kinds of places in our life, and we want to have transformational living, then we've got to want to change, and we've got to realize it's going to require a little bit of effort on our part. Oftentimes we live in automatic reaction, meaning we automatically respond to things. I said that already. Now, philosophy, if any in the audience remember studying it through high school and college, it has always said it says very similar things to what we teach in the teaching, in the Science of Mind. So in that sense, there's nothing really new about what we teach. There's nothing really new about New Thought. You've heard that said many times. The ancients knew what we were teaching to a large extent. I remember having to get reacquainted with Socrates and the pre-Socratics in a couple courses a few years ago. And Socrates in particular, what he was always doing and suggesting is for us to learn to know ourselves and really know what we're thinking. I think he had it inscribed in the Temple of Delhi, if I'm not mistaken. Know yourself. Know what your thoughts are about. And other philosophers would have said the same thing. I think it was James Allen, or I may be wrong, but I remember the quote, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." So this stuff about knowing yourself and paying attention to what you're thinking has been around for a very long time, thousands of years. Again, it's been written on temple walls in ancient cultures. The ancient wisdom has always been here. Again, people have said to me for 30 years, there is nothing new about New Thought. It's true, but the practice of it is something that's very different than having some distant knowledge about it. A bit later, some of the religions, I'm speaking of the Judeo-Christian system and others, I imagine, would say that your circumstances, all that's happened to you in your life, all you've lost, the children, the people have come and gone. The churches would have said, this is the will of God. This is the will of God, for someone to have died and someone to have passed and someone, everything is just chalked up wholesale to the will of God. And there's a lot of people who believe that right now, It's not God's will for anyone to suffer. It's not God's will for half of these things. God doesn't respond in the ways that a lot of these earlier faiths have thought. Some in our audience will feel that this God is above, and they will feel that it's anthropomorphic, meaning this God has got like hands and a beard, and it's located in the heavens, and that it personally responds and it gives you the things you want and need. And, we have somewhat a very childlike, simplistic view of life. And oftentimes we think we can manipulate the process of life, and that just plainly isn't so. So some people will be thinking, it's some guy, some supreme power, the one that you have to, in the old days, be afraid of, or you have to appease, and you need to bring alms to, and you need to confess to, and you need to beg forgiveness, and you can approach this God in fear and trembling and all of that. Most of the religions of the past few hundred years, in one way or another, say your circumstances were due to the will of God. Philosophy, enlightened people, most scientists, philosophers would rarely make such a statement, nor would any modern scientist. Even scientists who have an inkling of spirituality and a belief in something bigger are not so religious, right? They do understand, however, that there is a spirituality and an energy, if you will. They may language it different, but they know that there's something. And it can't be created, and it's not destroyed. The scientists, the philosophers, the mystics would never say that there is some God or force that's out there to punish you, to get you, that has a will either to reward or to punish you. There is no supreme being that has a will to punish, who is a window keeper who's watching your life. I know many of you, including myself, were taught that as children. We were taught that there was a Santa Claus also, if you might recall. A Santa Claus that would see you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake and knows when you've been good and knows when you've been bad. And There's no big genie up there, really, or big guy for that matter. No sacred woman either that listens to you and gives you special favor and saves you from anything. So we're not looking for saviors here either. If you're coming to our teaching, we will tell you about power, and we will tell you about presence, and we will tell you about the power you have that's available, that's in you, operating through you. We will talk to you about a law of action that responds to. It has to respond. It has no choice but to respond. We, every week, will talk about and tell you about an energy, a force that you have that's yours to use. We show you how life responds to you endlessly and always, whether you want it to or not. It is what it does. If you want to read more about that, go to the first 4 chapters of the textbook. So we're going to talk about that week by week and remind you always. Very, very simply, what lives inside of every single person is the determining factor of their experience. That was a term I think I got from Barker. Whatever it is that lives within you is the determining factor of your outer experience. Thoughts that you have deep within you. You know, the ones that are harbored, which is what Barker was talking about. The ones that you know in secret, the ones you don't share with anybody. Those are the thoughts that are really important. You might think that you're wonderful and fabulous, or you might think that you're a really rotten person. Whatever that is, and it's not our place to judge any of it, whatever those harbored thoughts are, the ones that you haven't spoken of or you dared share with anybody, maybe things you've done at different points in your life, those are the things that you live with, and they torture you unless you begin opening up. I often quote Jacqueline Small, who used to say, or said in one of her writings, all of our battered places need to come to light, because we've got all these stories about things, people, places, and things that we've done and that have been done to us in our imagination or in reality. These things need to come to light. It's possible that you are the only person who really knows what you are thinking. In fact, it's likely. For a good number of people don't really feel safe to express how they feel. And they never have felt safe to express how they feel. People are living in families, based upon power. There's a father figure, a matriarchal figure. There's relationship dynamics with husbands and wives. And there you are with your thoughts, and you don't feel that you can really speak them. Because there's that what if I do, what will happen next? It's oftentimes tied into security and a needing to belong and a needing to be approved. So whether you have these thoughts and whether you've developed the capacity to be more and more open and share them or not, everyone's on a different continuum with this subject. Whatever it is, though, that's going on inside of you, it's creating your life. I do remember from Louise Hay's early writings, someone saying, if you really knew me, you wouldn't want to hang out with me. And I've been a therapist for many years and a public speaker, and I know that there's a ton of stuff that people have inside of them. It's the dirty secrets, it's the stuff that people are ashamed of. And, we encourage people all the time to, open up, share that with somebody else. I'm fond of the 12-step process. I was a part of that for the past 40 years. And in it, they'll suggest you take an inventory. And this one, there's several, but the one they're talking about is the 4th step, where they ask you to, for your own sake, to have a searching and fearless inventory. Searching and fearless means go to all those places and write down the things where you have been wronged or you feel you have wronged other people. And then the next step is the 5th step, where you seek another person after you've done this inventory, and you sit down and share. You share it with somebody. I'm fond of remembering the phrase, a problem shared is a problem cut in half. Because the thing is, wherever there's pain that's hidden, that's unexpressed, it needs to come to light. So in that spiritual system, the advice is to find another person who you trust very much and share, open up. And you'll be amazed before you're halfway through. You'll see that, perhaps many of the things that you thought were so big aren't such a big deal, and it will give you tremendous relief to open up a little bit about the things that you've been harboring, that have been in that safe harbor, because all that stuff is percolating beneath the surface unless you've done the work to bring it to light and bring it into your awareness and neutralize the thoughts, release the thoughts. See, that work is the work we do. Sometimes people call it the shadow work. We come into this teaching, we talk about how fantastic life is, how we are one with the one, which we are. And all of that is true, and yet I know beneath the surface for many people, there's a lot of things that have not been reconciled. There's a lot of things that people are conflicted over. And that stuff, unless it's dealt with, plays out in our life. Everyone has an interior life, and some of us have a really beautiful, beautiful sense of life and connection. And some of you have been working with this teaching for a very long time, and your lives reflect that beauty. It reflects the knowing. You feel connected profoundly with the earth and with people of every kind. And some people live with this awesome sense of connection and in gratitude, profound gratitude, that you can live in it and you will experience it day by day and hour by hour. And some of you have come to our calls and our lessons, because we're having hundreds of people watching our lessons every week. Some of you are, coming in and all of this is new, and some of you will run from these messages. But others will begin to understand that there's power within you that's greater than you, and it responds to you. So you begin working with it. Some of you are starting to realize that you live and you move and you have your essence, your very being is in this energy, this responsive energy. And you're beginning to sense that your outer problems and challenges of every kind, all your experiences are a result of the way you have been looking at life, responding to life, the way you are operating. As you come into our classes every Thursday at 7 and our services, and you start reading on your own and learning to meditate and learning to do affirmative prayer and learning to journal, as you start to get involved with your own conversation and start practicing doing some work on yourself, you're going to be in the process of replacing limiting ideas. We always say, we're in the business of changing lesser ideas for greater. So you'll look at the thoughts and the thinking, and one by one you'll begin to neutralize them, cancel them. As you do this, as you further commit to this teaching, you are transforming your awareness, you're transforming your consciousness, and as you transform and change your consciousness, everything's played out according to consciousness. So your consciousness of 5 years ago was playing out, that brought you to where you are now. But things can radically change and improve if you're willing to take the time to work with your thinking, your thoughts, and your emotions. And what'll happen is you're going to start to experience a lot more joy, happiness, and beauty. If you've been at this for a while, and I know some of us have been, 30 or 40 years in some cases, if you've been at this for a while, or you find yourself coming back to the classes or the teaching, that's really good, but maybe it's time for some of the old timers too to recommit. Maybe it's time to take a class again or get a little bit more involved in the center, what we teach. We do have a tendency sometimes to forget the power that we have at our disposal because we get hooked into the stories or the things that are happening of the day. Ours is a very deep metaphysical study. It may not seem like it initially because you're coming in here and you're learning about the law of attraction. You're learning about how it works. But, you can take this teaching to a different place where you realize that you wake up to the realization that, and recognize that I'm one with power, I'm one with love, I'm one with life, and that life is my life, and it's here now, and it's operating in me and through me. And you can develop this consciousness where the things of the world really don't impact you or in hardly any way, because you're centered in this God awareness, and you are being about, as they said in the New Testament, you're really being about your Father's business, or you're being about Spirit's business. And you're really not terribly concerned with the things of the world because your focus is on high. It's a different place. You're in a different place the longer you are in this teaching. We forget this, though, unless we're practicing it. So it's really important to stay plugged in, not just to us, though we'd love to have you be a part of our center. We have virtual members. We have a very low entry cost, $50. To become a part of our virtual center where we can remind you always of the truth of who you are and how great you are. Many, if not most people, forget that we have this power. We forget that we are imbued with this power and that it's a part of us. I remember, years ago when I was younger, learning of the word namaste. Oftentimes, we say that here, but if you slow down, the word suggest is, when you encounter another person, this is a divine being, and every encounter is a holy encounter. If you could slow down just long enough to realize that, this is a spiritual system, and you're a spiritual being, and wherever you encounter another person, it's quite a thing. It's a spiritual being. Think about that. Think of what it would be like for you if you were walking down the street and you were more aware of that. All of life is spiritual, and we forget this quickly. Most of us don't live from this place of awareness and realization as often as we'd like. I mean, you touch upon it when you come into a Sunday service or a Thursday class. So staying as involved as you can and sharing and checking in, we have a time for sharing. It's important, because you're acknowledging who you are, you're sharing who you are with others, and you're listening. And all of this brings us back to this place of realization and where we learn, because once you get a taste of this, you really want to become the guardian at the gate of your own consciousness. When other people are going low, your tendency is to go high. You really don't want to go and be too involved with gossip and all the junk that, people are routinely doing. I was thinking of Raymond Charles Barker as I was going through his material, and like him at this point in my life, I've been at it for a long time, about the same period of time he was when he was making these lessons. He knew, and I know, that people in my life and at the center will come and go. Some people are really committed to evolving consciously. Some people really want to step out of their past conditioning, the lives that they've had in the past where they're recircling many of the same thoughts they've had for 20, 30, 40 years. Some people are really ready to make a change. They're longing for change, deeply and truly. So their intention is to stay the course and to stay connected. And that doesn't mean just stay connected with our group, though we hope you do. Living in connection means living in the awareness that I am one with this one power, and my word and my consciousness has power, and I create through my consciousness. There's a lot of people just coasting, and they come in and they tune into a lesson, and it's good, and they're being exposed to this new idea and new thought. They're not yet really practicing what we call the presence. They've not yet learned to become practitioners, where we practicing the good, the God in all things. And they haven't realized yet that this life, this greater life that we want, is an inside job. I'm often saying, in truth, there is nothing outside of you. So this richness in life, this awareness of life really comes from the inside out. If you know that you are one with the one, and you live in this and you move in this, you're going to begin to see it more and more in everyone and everywhere. People come to us that they want to have a greater life. They want to have, they want to be operating from a more connected place. And they might think they can change and learn how to live differently. And of course, you definitely can. I can relate to just about everyone that I meet, wherever they are, whatever they believe. Life is a lot like being in a school. You've heard that, a school of continuing education. Hopefully we're always curious enough and we're willing and wanting to learn more. The whole process, as we practice it, becomes easier. You will see the fruits of this consciousness playing out all over your life if you keep working with it. If we are approaching life from a place of realization, so the first step of treatment is recognition. We recognize that there's a power and there's a presence, and that presence and power is in me, operating through me right now. If we're approaching this life from this place, well, then things start to get exciting and interesting. When we know that we're one with this power, it's operating in us and through us, and the people that we are looking at are part of this spiritual system. When you say, this person, this place, this situation, it's all God in action, it becomes an exciting experience. Because the world is expanding, and everything is evolving in life. The people the country you live in, the world you live in is all this vast spiritual system, and it's all evolving, and so are you, and so am I. And if you're communing with this realization that there's life and there's spirit in you that's expanding, there's no damnation, there's only a flow of energy that's expanding. It's very fluid, and it's presenting you with learning opportunities all the time. Now, whether you learn the lesson that's presented or not, that's entirely up to you. You've heard me share a saying from another minister: same song, different verse, a little bit louder and a little bit worse. You can learn the lesson because there's endless lessons, or you can take a pass on it. If you don't learn what's in your life now and you choose to go rogue or go solo or whatever it is, if you don't learn what's there, life doesn't give up on you. The lesson comes in another way. Many people are trying to hang on tight. They don't want change. And what we learn here is to go with the flow. And we learn to trust life, as Louise Hay would say all the time. We learn not to hang on so tightly. We learn to live and trust. And more than that, we learn to let other people live. We don't try to change a soul. Raymond Charles Barker said, the famous talk he did, How to Change Other People. And everybody flocked to hear it, of course, and then he told them, you can't change people. So we don't want to hang on to things. We want to trust, we want to be fluid, and we want to live and let live. Let people do their thing. Everyone is an individualization of spirit. So we let people be. They're in the perfect place also. And you might say, oh my God, they're doing this, that, or the other thing. And really, that's none of my spiritual business. It's none of your spiritual business. People are where they are by right and virtue of consciousness. And if Agatha were on the call today, which she probably is, she would tell us all that she works on Agatha. And that's always going to be the correct answer. Life is expanding all the time. So for people who are paying attention to what's being uncovered and realized, it's a very exciting process. Your life can be so exciting. You don't really have to go anywhere. You just allow yourself to be open to what the guidance that's being given to you. You weren't meant to live with a small interior life. If you're working it right and you're engaging spirit, you're constantly being flooded with new ideas and inspiration if you're open to it. If you've never heard about metaphysics or the law of attraction or Ernest Holmes or Louise Hay, or you've never been to Unity even, if you're really green on all these subjects, that's okay. Just stay with us. It'll start to make sense. You might be saying to yourself in the extended audience, what are they thinking of? What are they talking about? And worse, what you might be doing is you might be comparing yourself and thinking, oh my goodness, geez, I've done all these terrible things in my life. I'm a mess. I can't relate to what they're talking about. They're telling you how great you are in this place. And you might have, in your opinion, a very low opinion of yourself, because people come into spiritual centers oftentimes with a great desire to heal and to improve. And wherever you are, you're welcome. And it's not an accident. You're in the right place. You might be thinking, though, I've sinned, I'm nasty, I'm jealous, I can't get along with my wife, I'm having lots of people problems. You might see yourself as being highly critical of others. You always know what's wrong with people, places, and things. So you might be thinking, oh my goodness, I've made so many mistakes in my life. I'm really this terrible person. And there might be a lot of remorse. Oftentimes when I encounter people in the beginning, their life is not working for them, it's working against them. So whenever and however you find yourself into our broadcast, whenever you come into a teaching like this, it could be a huge internal challenge, because you might have a lot of beliefs, or what we used to describe erroneous thinking. Excuse me, Anthony, close all the doors. Sorry for the interruption. You might have a lot of blind spots, old tapes, religious programming. The first book, self-help book I remember reading, was by Wayne Dyer. It was called Erroneous Zones. It was the name of his book. I believe he was simply saying most of us have a lot of faulty thinking. And so it's difficult sometimes to relate to the very positive messages, life-giving messages that our teaching offers. And we keep reminding you every Thursday and Sunday that you live, move, and have your being in this God activity, and that this activity is responding to you all the time. Because the inner world that many people have and they maintain, and I would say a lot of most people have an inner world where they're not enough, and whatever's happening is not right, and it's not enough. People are riddled with every type of fear, every kind, and not feel good again about themselves or life itself. So our message could be too much for a lot of people. People, as you might know, you might have done it yourself in your life, people unwittingly, not that they want to, self-sabotage themselves. When someone is miserable, they almost can't help taking that misery out in someone else. And what we teach you here in the end, it's always, whatever you're doing, whatever you're reacting to is always about you. Any serious metaphysician or mystic is always going to go back to the idea of perception regarding themselves. A mystic, a person who's involved in this teaching, a practitioner, is here and committed to seeing the good. That's the commitment, to know that God is here. There is God in this. There is good in this. They're here to sense and know and to appreciate the divine, to sense the perfection that is here right now. It's always here. But you might notice how quickly we move from that perfect place of knowing. So one of our axioms, one of the things we teach often, is that you are cause to your own experience. Now that's something that you could write down. You could write it down probably about 10 times every day. I am cause to my own experience. Because to the extent that you can take that idea in, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. Once again, you would say, I am cause to my own experience. If I could really get our virtual audience today, all these people on the board and all the people who will listen this week, if I could really get them to understand that I am cause to my own experience. There really would be nothing else to talk about. There would be nothing else to teach today. In truth, this is another very deep metaphysical statement, but I don't know, I think it goes over people's head a lot. In truth, there's nothing outside of me. That is another way, that's another statement that can take you such a long way. I am close to my own experience. I'm caused to my own experience would suggest that life is reflecting your understanding all the time. And this is never about I am good or I'm bad. I am caused to my own experience is meaning life is reflecting me. It's about a law that corresponds. It's a law that reflects. It's a law that mirrors your understanding. And it is in operation every minute, every hour of every day. Ernest Holmes said something that I have thought about for about 20 years, probably longer. And whenever I dare say it in a class, and sometimes I say, do I really want to say that to these folks today? Every time I quote Ernest Holmes with one statement he made, I think it goes above most people's heads because it's somewhat impossible to live from the place that he's talking about. Ernest said regarding our affirmative prayer treatment that the best treatment is the realization that there's nothing to treat for. I'll say that again. Dr. Holmes said the best treatment is the realization that there is nothing to treat for. Now, what the heck does he mean by that? The best treatment is the realization that all is well, that life is perfect, and there's absolutely nothing you need. There's nothing you need to treat for. We teach affirmative living here. We teach affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer is one of the most powerful prayer processes on earth. We will have a class on it, and we will do it at depth. We'll do that sometime this year. So as we teach this powerful prayer process, it's very, very powerful. We have Ernest, the founder, saying that the best treatment is the realization that there's nothing to treat for. There's nothing to pray for. Why would he ever say the best treatment is the realization that there's nothing to pray for? Well, I'll attempt to answer the question. Oftentimes I regret bringing it up. For the most part, people that you know, and you might include yourself, I might include myself, for the most part, people are living at the effect of other things. They're living at the effect of the economy, they're living at the effect of politics, they're living at the effect of their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their parents, and most people are in some type of a place of reaction, right? Now, you don't have to be living at the effect of anything, but we are. Many of us are anyway. Many or most are living at the effect of our families, our spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, the economy. Today they're on social media and they're living at the effect of whether they get 10 likes on their post or 100 or who's following them and who's trending and whatever. People live at the effect of so much. It's a bit of an addiction in a way. It's kind of like, do you like me? Do you approve of me? I suppose it could be harmless enough if you were unattached, completely unattached to what the results are. If you're just expressing yourself and sharing your words and your art or your thoughts, I suppose it could be a wonderful thing. But if you're needing the approval, you're needing the applause or the nod from anybody, your mother, your brother, your teacher, if you're really deeply needing it from the outside, and you find yourself, my God, and you're not a child anymore, then you might say you're looking for love and the realization of love in all the wrong places. Many people, if not most people, are not really aware of what makes them happy. They're looking outside, or they're looking to someone else to give them a suggestion. Or they're trying to be okay. They're trying to appear to be okay. They don't realize that they themselves are inlets and outlets of spiritual activity. I often think of Terry Cole Whitaker, who wrote a book which was entitled, "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." When you're living your life authentically, you're expressing your life, and you're not looking to the right, and you're not looking to the left, and you're not overly concerned whether you are uploaded, liked, or how you're received. You come into this teaching and you become empowered. You learn that you are the author of your own experience. There will never, ever, ever be another person like you. You are unique in all the world. So what is important for you and for me is to learn how to express ourselves lovingly, authentically, uniquely, realizing that we are each one with spirit, and we're here to express ourselves in freedom. Often we're not doing that. Often we're not expressing ourselves in freedom. Often we have all these harbored areas and thoughts, if they really knew me, right? So we want to, step out of that and get in touch with who we really are, and do the work where any of those places can be brought to light. Often we are living at the effect of many other things. We have so many stories within us, or Jacqueline Small would say battered places, or stories that we could release. You could have stories about, I don't have enough this, I don't have enough love or money, I don't have. Or you might be explaining your life, might be saying, I can't do this, that, or the other thing because of external factors. You could name them. It won't matter in the end. Most people, without realizing it, are creating their lives based upon a lot of thoughts and old beliefs that they have been personally recycling for years, and yet they blame life or people, places, and things. So when someone like Ernest Holmes said the best affirmative prayer is the realization that there's nothing to treat for. If you hear someone say that who believes it, you're dealing with a real practitioner, you're dealing with a real mystic, you're dealing with a real truth student. Because that person has come to the realization that they live, move, and have their being in perfect source. And whatever is there, or whatever has been removed from that person's life, will never define them, because they know they are greater than the wealth, or they're greater than the relationship. They will know that they are an entity, a spiritual being that's limitless, and they are the whole thing, as Barker would say themselves. This person is going to know that there is a presence that sustains them, and they're going to realize this presence, and they're going to realize this power is within them. They're going to realize everything is here, right now, with them and around them. For those exalted souls and beings, of which there are some of you in the audience, there's nothing to treat for. Louise Hay would say it so simply, all is well. For those people who really get that, and I've known a few in my life, very few, these women and men have tremendous knowledge, and faith. For them, there is no need. Their moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day experience is one of experiencing joy, where they extend love to other people, and they have really nothing to say about what other people are doing. They really, for a large extent, are one with life. And you might say, and you might be thinking about this lesson, you might say, well, I'm not there yet. Most of us aren't. Most of us need to be working with the law. Most of us need to be working with the law of attraction, or you may prefer to call it the law of cause and effect. Most of us are waking up and stepping out of the old paradigm, the old stories of our youth, and most of us are learning that we're really pretty wonderful, and we're great, and we're attempting to get in touch with that which within us, which is wonderful. And we're wanting to live in connection, where we come to understand that there is, in fact, one life, and that life we are part of. And we're coming to understand that this presence is everywhere and in everyone. And we know that it responds to all of us according to our beliefs. I was thinking about it as I was preparing this lesson. I was thinking of 5 or 6 lessons, 5 or 6 students who've said to me over the years when I was teaching them about metaphysics, and they would say to me, "God, Greg, get real." And they would want me to see how wrong certain things are and how bad certain people are. And I would listen to that, and they made their best case, but I was never convinced, because I would always know that whoever they were talking about, wherever they were and whatever they have done, they were operating at a level of consciousness. I might not like their behavior, but the person was doing the best they could with the understanding they had at the time. But people, and you might have people in your own life like that, would be trying to convince you of how bad a situation is in the world, how bad a situation is in a family, how awful something is, and they basically are running within them some version of "ain't it awful." And I remember these people well. They were in an internal battle, and they wanted company, and they wanted me to agree with them and say they're right. The positive approach that that Louise Hay spoke of, or the metaphysical approach to life, is just another way. There's the same things. The metaphysical approach, the positive approach, is another way of saying, we know all is well. I'm fond of Ernest Holmes' way of expressing this. He said it this way: the affirmative life, we learn to live the affirmative life, and he taught us how to live it. It doesn't matter what name you use, the positive approach, the affirmative life, it's the same thing. If you're beginning to listen to these lessons, and even if you're halfway committed, you're learning to commune with Spirit, and you're beginning to get past the past. You're beginning to change the negative conditions in your life. You're starting to understand that the Spirit is in you and around you and operating through you and unfolding in you and in everyone else. This Spirit that we talk about, that we teach every week, I say often, but I originally learned from Unity probably 30 years ago, was called the best kept secret in the world. God in you, Spirit in you, is the best kept secret in the world. We look for good everywhere and anywhere, but the only place we'll ever find it is within ourselves. We realize that we have this tremendous gift, and we want to fan that flame of knowledge that it lives and it moves, and it's within us, operating through us. Many of us have harbored a lot of erroneous thinking from Wayne Dyer. We've had a lot of erroneous zones, and we've even defended them and defended them again. It doesn't matter where you were, what happened long ago, what people have done to you. It doesn't matter the story of what brought you to where you are right now. All of the negatives and the battered places that have held you back will eventually come to light. All of the world is healing, not just with you. The whole world is evoluting along. Now you might say, well, what about the war that's going on now? What about this? What about that? And we come right back to the truth. The same power that's in you, operating through you and guiding you, is in every single person that inhabits the planet. All of the world is unfolding, healing. We can take comfort in that. It may not happen on our time and our plan, but it's happening still. Our focus and our energy is always on remaining in conscious contact and having this connection with Source. We intend to be the guardians at the gate of our own consciousness. We intend to be consistent. We're in the business of trading in lesser ideas, releasing negative ideas. We are open and willing to embrace positive thinking. We are developing positive expectancy. That was a great gift from one of my friends, this guy Danny from Florida. He says, boy, this teaching is all about positive expectancy and looking away from the negatives. And it doesn't mean we're ignorant of facts in life, but our training is to try to know that there's God or there's good in every situation. And our focus is to see it and find it. So if you're practicing this teaching rightly, you're excited about life, and it won't matter if you're 22, or 82. And you're excited about what's next. We are living in the present and we're excited about the future. So to sum it up for this morning's lesson, it's entirely up to you. You're connected with unlimited source, which means it will always help you if you tune into it. There's guidance. You have an internal guidance system. You can rely on it if you turn to it. It will inform you. It won't happen accidentally, though. It's up to you. It's entirely up to you to make a demand in your consciousness for a greater life, a life that's more full, that uses your talents more completely, a life where you live in connection. As you stay involved with this teaching, as you join with us, hopefully you become members, we'll be reminding you all the time that you exist as pure potential. We'll be reminding you that you're doing important work in your life, and we'll be encouraging you to continue to grow. Again, it won't matter your age, it won't matter whatever's happened. The point of power is always here and now. So starting here, starting now, each of us can be, if we really want to be, we can be different. We can make a decision to have everything change, everything improve. Does it sound ambitious? Sure it does. Does it seem likely? Well, I'm sure it sounds ambitious to someone who has very little positive expectations for life. But it's not ambitious. It's entirely possible if you want to put a demand on a greater life experience, greater health, prosperity, greater relationships, better relationships. Certainly all of that's available. If you don't want to do any work and you just want to come for a message, it probably won't do a great deal. You know, you've got to want it and be willing to challenge your thinking. So starting here, starting now, it can all change. And I'm going to assume there's a few here on this call or who will listen this week that really want to change, who want to participate in a bigger life experience, who want to live in connection and in gratitude. So that's really good if I snagged a few of you this week or inspired. There's power, as we tell you every week, and you can definitely use it. It's yours to use. It's operating through you. So it would be great today if you decided you want to have this bigger life, and the universe is going to say yes to you. The next thing you're going to want to do is figure out how you're going to reinforce that desire every single day, so it's not just something that happens today on Sunday. Reinforcing that commitment to live a bigger life involves a word some people don't like. It's a little bit of work. Reinforcing that commitment of self-realization that, I am one with the one, requires that you just stay in touch, stay plugged in with us, start reading some books and some support material, do some journaling, do some meditating. But your primary focus is to stay in connection. Because we have this built-in forgetter. There is a passage from Louise Hay's work, Remembering and Forgetting. It's the game we play. So since we know we have a propensity to forget the truth of who we are, then let's build into our positive intention that I'm going to stay plugged in. I'm going to stay plugged in with this center. And I'm going to do other things too. So I'll have affirmations everywhere. I will constantly remind me of the truth of who I am, the beauty that's inside of me, and that I'm here to be a lifter. And I'm here to express myself and to use all my spiritual talents to the best of my ability. Maintaining this commitment to live the affirmative life is our work. So I could go on for a long time, but I feel this is enough for right now. So it's a good place to close, and because I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say about what you're doing to stay in constant contact, to stay in touch, and whether you are willing to make this commitment to live a bigger life. So we'll see you on the other side of the break. So it is.